everybody, welcome to Language in Cognitive Neuroscience. So this, again, is going to be a kind of a review. We've talked a lot about Broca's and Wernicke's area. We're going to add some stuff to it as we go through, tell you explain the differences between aphasia and other kinds of language disorders that, start, of course, in the brain, talk about where these brain areas are, give a little bit of background on the cognitive aspect of language, and then, like I said, we'll end up finishing on Thursday. So, yeah. Hold on just 1 second. Trying to see. Okay. So, language. Noam Chomsky. We're not really going to talk about Noam Chomsky, but, he probably would have been a really, really stinky man. As a kid. Okay. What does the chimp say? I don't know. Alright. So, these are the language centers that we're going to be talking about. A lot of words. A lot of fancy words. Of course, in your midterm, I asked you for the areas of what would actually be referred to as Broca's area, and then Wernicke's area, which is right here. It's not the whole superior temporal gyrus, as you can see. It's only a small portion of it. But many of you said superior temporal gyrus, and that was fine, because that's technically where it is. Because the superior temporal gyrus is the entire thing. From the angular gyrus, which is this little bulge here, all the way to the end of it, right? So that's the entire gyrus. But as we'll see, Wernicke's area is only this. And the patients that end up with Wernicke's aphasia end up with damage that is in and around this area. So not all Wernicke's aphasia patients do have the same damage, which means they're not going to have the same deficits. Similar deficits, which is why we get to call it, its own thing, get its own name. But it's all that area. All right, and and then Broca's area, dorsolateral or dorsal lateral gyrus here. Okay. Just beneath it, we're going to talk a little bit about the inferior frontal cortex. So inferior down at the bottom. And what else did I want to talk about on here? We are going to mention the supramarginal gyrus just a little bit, but as far as language goes, this is what we got. These, 5 areas? 5 areas? 5 colored areas. Now, this is only in the left hemisphere, as we've discussed. When we discussed hemispheric specialization earlier in the semester, it's only on the left, okay? There's obviously these structures exist on the right hemisphere, but their functions are totally different. Okay? Functions are totally different. And I want you to see here that, so it looks like the temporal lobe kind of exists on its own. Like we could maybe pull it apart and maybe flay it out from the rest of the cortex. It's kind of like that, but it's also kind of not. The Sylvian fissure here, and the reason why it's not called a sulcus is because it's deeper than a sulcus. Okay, so the fissure does separate the lobes. But there's also this idea here that they are connected along this fissure. So there is something to be said about the development of language in this area of the brain. Katerina asks, is language focused on the left hemisphere? Yes, and the right does something else in these areas. Whatever, if we're talking about these specific structures, then yes, there's probably some other function, and those we won't be talking about the right hemisphere because we are just going to be talking about language. Excuse me. All right. So yeah, there we go. Whew, I was like, oh, the video's gonna load. All right. So I want to separate. We're gonna talk about the neuropsych of this first before we jump into the cogneuro of it. And so patient studies, brain damage. Here we have anomia and dysarthria. Okay, so these are language disorders that are not aphasia, as we've so discussed. Okay, so I'm going to play the anomia video. And anomia is a difficulty finding words. Now, I have self-diagnosed anomia. I have a lot of difficulty finding words. This anomia is, it's obviously tongue-in-cheek. Words are hard, but anomia as an actual disorder, you will hear this woman. It's a grainy old video. It's from the 1950s or 1960s. A woman, you're not going to see her. But in this image, and I'll give you a little, before I start playing it, in this image are tools, okay? So you can kind of make out here a hammer. You can make out a saw. I believe this is a wrench. I'm not entirely sure what that is. But you'll hear her, the woman is the one with anomia. The male voice that you hear is her doctor. The psychologist that's or neurologist who's testing her. You'll hear her struggle to name the object that she's talking about. She can describe it perfectly, what it's used for, what the tool does, what she's seen people use it, all of that. She cannot name it. Okay, so let me play that and I'll turn it down because for some reason. It's loud.
You know what it is. I can't tell you. Maybe I can.
I wish they would
carry the wood and cut it in half with that.
I wish they would
if I had to cut the wood
point
down to bring it in.
Then you'd use one of these.
Oh, he pointed to it. Sorry, I missed that
It's
when I first watched
a-
it. So she's talking about the saw.
Them in the garage. They are you cut the wood with them. It saw.
Oh,
See how long it took her to come up with that?
It's saw.
And now she's struggling to be confident.
I know what it is, and I could cut the wood with it, and it's in my garage.
She said saw.
And you also, when you go out and you want to stay out in the woods with people, you always take those with you. And you, it's not a knife. It's not a.
Also, why would you take a saw with you in the woods?
I know
Cut
what
down
it
some
is, I
trees.
think.
Well, finish saying what you started saying.
I'm not sure I'm stating it right.
Try again.
No, I'm incorrect.
She's not confident, but she's obviously said saw multiple times.
If I was to cut through the wood, I'd tell him I would bring the. I know what it is.
I saw one of these yesterday.
So did I. At my neighbor's.
And what do they call?
We were socking the wood in half. Socking the wood in half. It's not socking.
Socking.
Sock.
Oh, it's an axe. That's why I couldn't make it out. This one's an axe.
It starts with an S.
How many syllables does it have in it?
It has a U.
Is it one? Is it a short word or a long word?
It's a little longer than if I put 3. Like if I put eat, E-A-T.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the same factor. It's if I was to go buy them at the store for my wood, they're socks. No.
Okay, well,
I know what it is.
that's good.
Okay, so that's anomia. There are plenty of other videos on YouTube. I wanted to use that old one because it was just, it really hit home how difficult trying to identify objects and the words. And even though she found the word immediately, she found the word. She's talking about, I have them in my garage. People use them to cut wood, blah, blah, blah. A saw. The doctor was really good by not giving her any feedback. And then her confidence. We all like, yeah, that's a saw. I'm confident that's a saw. I know what a saw is. That's a saw. But to this woman, even though she named it, not confident that that is what she said. Okay? Yes, Katerina, that is correct. It's knowing it. It's almost like it's it's like a constant tip of the tongue phenomenon. Okay. Symptom of dementia. Yeah. Because overall dementia is cognitive decline, and a lot of cognitive decline just comes from the fact that our brain tissue is degrading, it's starting to die, it's pocketing, it's cavitating, it's, so yeah, it could be a symptom of dementia because of what dementia is. That one I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing if there's a description of the woman in the video. Most of these come from strokes, especially in younger people. But yeah, any of these could be a disorder caused by dementia. Yes. Okay. Dysarthria. Don't forget the second R in there. Dysarthria. So this is difficulty controlling the muscles that you have to use in speech. Okay? They're all right here, right? They're in your mouth, they're your cheeks, your lips, your tongue, down here in your throat. Most of the time, dysarthria does just affect the mouth muscles and the tongue, particularly. So this is a patient. This is an older man. I believe he had a stroke, because you can see strokeforcarers.org here down at the bottom. So this is a stroke survivor who ends up with dysarthria, and you can see they have the camera trained on him, because you'll see on his mouth when he tries to speak how certain words come out. It's a bit of a longer video. Turn that down just a bit.
In this film, you will see Jim. When this film was made, it was 9 months after his stroke. Jim has dysarthria. This is caused by the weakness of the muscles of the face, mouth, and breathing.
Is that too quiet for you all?
Jim has to use and how he has difficulty projecting.
Or can you hear it good?
His voice. Some people like Jim may have difficulty with drooling or food pocketing at the side of their mouth. Dysarthria is not a problem understanding speech, but of producing and forming
Okay,
the
I'll turn that
words
up.
because of weakness.
Can you tell me how long ago it was since you've had your stroke?
Last September, and I'm down to hospital to test the TDs for.
Okay, try turning up your audio.
So you were in about 3 months.
They're also Scottish or Irish,
Jen, do you
one of the
find it
two.
difficult to
Yeah,
use
Irish.
the telephone at home?
No, really. But get, sometimes.
Let me see if I can make it louder.
I didn't know about over the telephone. I'm trying to get.
So some words
I
don't come over very well.
And people don't understand it, and that's what I'm saying. Getting put face to face with somebody and they'll understand it better.
So face to face is better.
Okay, I'm pausing that. Stream died. All right. Stream died. Come on, stream. You can do it. Put your back into it. Oh, man. All right. Trying to get the stream back, y'all. Doing this is going great. Okay. Hopefully we're back now. Sorry about that, everybody. Just trying to increase the gain on the volume here. So let's try that again.
And you think they can sort of understand you better and see your gestures
I
as
can-
well as the words?
That's right,
Is that better?
And are you nervous about using the telephone?
No, no.
What do your family and friends do to help you with your communication?
Well, we just come and talk to me about the thing there, and football and that. That's the other day there.
So things that you're interested in
Aye.
and to engage you.
Yeah, talk about football and that thing.
This one is a little interesting because they're Irish, but then he's also
Jim, is there
trying to
anything
speak.
any advice that you would give to people, but if they're trying to communicate with somebody that's obviously had a stroke and their speech isn't so good?
One thing, be very patient with people are, because it didn't.
I think that's a good example of dysarthria. I think we don't need to watch the full thing, so I'm going to pause that there. I'm going to pause that there, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Any questions about dysarthria? That was not as... it's not as, fluid as I'd like. Trying to manage internet usage here. It's not going great. Not going great. Might be easier if I just screen grab these, download. So much work. So much work. All right. Okay. Green grass. Green. Okay. So, causes of dysarthria. So, this particular guy had a stroke. And we'll talk about the ventral and dorsal streams of language. And it has to do... We'll use the classical model first, and then we'll talk about the ventral and dorsal streams for where the specific the specific damage may have occurred for something like dysarthria. Why did I do that? It's over here. Okay, moving on. Nope. All right, next. Oop. Wait. Oh, man. This next one, I'm sorry, the animation got a little mixed up there. This next one is Apraxia. Okay, Apraxia. If I hit next, it'll start playing the video. So this one is the impairment of motor planning. Okay, and so this woman is going to demonstrate that for us. And the programming of speech articulation. Okay, in left hemisphere. So motor planning and programming of speech articulation. So the definition's a little funky, so that's why I'm going to have her demonstrate for you. So she is a stroke patient or survivor, and you can also have tumors can also impact for apraxia and or brain insults, which are things like concussions, that sort of thing. Why do they sound like they have wizard names? Yeah. So let's watch her tell us about, or at least demonstrate, apraxia. So she is only allowed to do the instructions
show me how to pretend you're blowing out a match.
with her right hand.
Okay. How about if you wanted to peel a potato and you were holding the knife with your right hand?
Just wonder if I can.
Okay. Because you're a lefty.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
I'm just making you do it with your right hand.
No, it's mean. It's mean.
Cruel.
Yes.
Don't mean to be. How about brushing your teeth? Show me how you'd hold a hammer to hammer a nail. How about dialing the telephone? Okay. Writing with a pen. Okay. All right. How about if you wanted to use a key to open a door? What would that look like? Try. You can just do it here a little bit.
So here she gets
You're unlocking
stuck.
the door with a key.
Now, she's using her right hand because we're talking about left hemisphere, right? So left hemisphere is controlling the right hand,
Right over here.
okay? And so she's now stuck
Door with a key.
in planning because by doing that twirling motion, she's stuck in that articulation, okay? She can't translate the speech
Snap your right fingers.
to
Good.
complex
How about
motor
if you were
actions.
talking with your right hand? Okay. Salute like a soldier.
These are simple motor actions.
How would you signal traffic to stop with your right hand?
I don't know. How would you do it?
That's the one you have trouble with. You
Okay.
don't. No. Say stop. with your right hand. Not sure?
How would you do it? I don't know.
Okay. All right.
That's an abstract concept. Stop, right? We would do this, right? You just stop. But doing this is just showing somebody your palm. It's not it's not an actual action.
How would you signal quiet with your right hand if you wanted to tell people to be quiet? Good. Can you make a V for victory?
Peace, y'all.
Can you put your right hand on your left shoulder? Could you put your right fist on your chest? Could you put your right palm on your forehead? Could you put your right fingertips on your chin? Could you point to your forehead? Could you point to your nose? Could you make a circle in the air with your right hand? Very good. All right.
All right. So that's apraxia. Nope, shut up. Well, yeah. So that's apraxia. Okay. Now, there is a related disorder that is genetic, and it's called childhood apraxia of speech. Most of the videos on YouTube, if you type in apraxia, will show you what childhood apraxia looks like. I wanted to use an adult because that's what we're primarily focused on in this class, but and the fact that it's caused here by stroke, brain tumor, insults rather than genetic disorders. So if you're curious, here's one from the Mayo Clinic. It's also 9 minutes long. Yeah, I'm not going to show you a 9-minute long video. So that's up to you. And then we're going to jump into our favorite aphasias, right? So aphasias, how they differ from the previous three. So aphasias, and we're going to go into depth on Brocas and Wernicke's, of course. These are deficits in language comprehension or production. Okay, language comprehension or production. So comprehension, production. Okay, and the generally speaking come about because of stroke or brain injury, actual like physical injury. So it's the language that is from the person, okay? Whether it's comprehending inside your own head or producing to then speak, the phasias have to do with language of the person, okay? Whereas the previous three were like language and motor, speech and planning, actions. Finding anomia is even apart from the other ones because it's just really a difficulty finding. It's finding words, which is not necessarily comprehension or production. That's a different brain area. So we are going to jump into Brocas Aphasia here. So I have a couple of. So we've talked about this, right? We've talked about this already. Brocas area is both shaded areas on this brain, okay? And it can be divided into two regions, okay? The pars apicularis and the pars triangularis, okay? I'm not entirely sure what apicularis means, but triangularis is because this gyrus is triangular. Opicular, I honestly don't know, but the entire dotted region is Brocas area. So any damage to either this turquoise or this other blue area here, any damage to here is going to produce Brocas aphasia, as we have seen it in general. Okay, again, since it's brain damage. We cannot get exactly the same experience and exactly the same effects from every single patient. Sure, you've seen, or we've talked about TAN. Some of you have mentioned TAN in your midterm essays. So he had trouble saying anything other than TAN. You could say some other things, but most of the time he responded in the way of TAN. The video that I'm going to show you, many of you have seen before. It's the tonal guy, the tonal gentleman. So some of the effects that you might see here with speech production. Spontaneously speaking, okay, just may seem like it's related to Tourette syndrome, okay? Just spontaneously starting to speak words. So in this way, the son, university, smart boy, good. Okay. Not as fast. Good. Okay, smart boy. Son, university. Okay. So that's spontaneously speaking. The other kind is repeating. Okay, so this is, you say a word. Now this is really cruel. Chrysanthemum. Okay, of course. Chrysanthemum. And the patient will struggle with articulating such a multisyllabic, a hard multisyllabic word. Chrysanthemum. Okay. Because the production part is just, it's not there. And this can all the way go down to the production at the tongue. Okay. And then the final one, have a hard time understanding reversible sentences. So, passive sentences. You're probably all familiar with, this sentence is passive. Please change it to active. We reverse where the objects, subjects, and verbs go. And we use the form of we use a form of the verb to be, right? So for neurotypical folks that don't have Brocas aphasia, we can read passive sentences fine. We can get the meaning by the end of the sentence. Of course, in writing, it's not as desirable as an active sentence because active sentences are full of vigor and they read quickly. They're most likely shorter, more concise. But we get the meaning from passive sentences no matter what, as neurotypical individuals. With Brocas aphasia, you might have the situation where if you say a backward sentence, the boy was hit by the girl, who hit whom, okay, the patient might reply with something like, boy hit girl. But of course, that's reading the sentence left to right, front to back, right? But we know that the girl hit the boy. The girl hit the boy because the boy was hit. Okay? And so syntax is lost as a function, or syntax understanding is lost as a function of this aphasia. Okay? So these are three ways. Lest we get bogged down in, just I'm going to repeat the same word over and over because these are extreme cases, these all would be classified under Brocas aphasia, okay? And it has to do with where the damage occurs, okay? So as an extreme case, I would like to share with you one of the patients that was shared with me when I was learning cognitive neuroscience. And so, like I said, many of you have seen this before. This gentleman has severe Brocas aphasia, and replies with the word, we'll call it a word. It's technically not a word. Tono. And if I were to spell it, I would say Tono, as far as I can hear what he's saying. But you'll notice, if you don't remember this one, you'll notice that when the researcher asks him to do another thing, another kind of speech production, which involves articulation and coordination with movement, again, dissociation from something like apraxia, you'll notice a difference, okay? So this is patient number 2.
However, we shall see how effective this patient is at manipulating his intonation of this utterance. The segments you will see are, first, a conversation about his upcoming move to a new house, followed next by a sample of his spontaneous automatic speech.
But tell me, why is it that you're moving, actually?
Tunnel.
And you can see that he changes his inflection. So non-verbal cues are intact.
Because the kids have grown and the house is getting too big, or ready for a smaller place? Seems reasonable. Plus to keep up. Now, all your children are grown, right? How many children do you have? Can you count that out for me? What number is this? Right? Right. Now let's count it out.
Here it comes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Nice, nice. Well, since you did 4 so well, let's go for broke. Let's go up to 20 if you can.
What's up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 1, 2,
Okay.
All right, he got 1 through 10. It's pretty good. Questions on that? Questions on that? Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. This is by far one of my most favorite things. It's humans are incredibly amazing, incredibly fascinating, and this guy, bless his heart. I mean, he's probably not with us anymore, just by the age of him and the age of the video. But, I'm sure we learned a lot about Brocas Aphasia from this man. So, yeah. Questions. We remember this guy. Everyone who is in that. Oh, excuse me. All right. So, oh yeah, Katerina. I'm sure there. Excuse me, going through puberty here. I'm sure there is. If I could identify who this man is, I'm sure there are reports of whether or not he, progressed. What other tests they might have done on him. I've searched for him on YouTube, and I have not found him. So yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. I have not found him. I wish I could find him. So this video that I got, I was able to grab from my cogneuro professor when I was in grad school. So, yeah. So that's Brocas Aphasia. Questions about Brocas Aphasia in general. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about Brocas Aphasia on the final. Although, you're like, wait, no, do. Seriously. Please. Please! Okay. So the next one is Wernicke's aphasia. Wernicke. So, Wernicke's. Wernicke's is, has to do with, oh, Katie. Wow. And Julia. Whew. With the fire today. So, Wernicke's aphasia. All right. So, here you can see a couple of connections already drawn on it. Okay. The black lines above Wernicke's there, right? This black line here is the arcuate fasciculus. This is the connection between Wernicke's area and Broca's area. Again, we've identified Broca's area already, right? One area that we didn't talk about on the first slide with all of the areas is this area here called the angular gyrus. That is where the arcuate fasciculus comes into Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area has to do with speech comprehension. Okay? Speech comprehension. White matter as well as gray matter, but mostly white matter. Okay? And that's white matter is specifically needed for speech comprehension. Because life comes at you fast. Speech comes at you fast. You need fast neurons to assist you with that. Right? So, we want white matter, right? So, Wernicke's area. Speech comprehension. Now, because we're talking about brain damage and patient studies, the only thing that we can see is how speech comprehension manifests in an observable way. The critical thing about Wernicke's aphasia is that you're actually seeing the effects of damage to comprehension rather than a lack of or a damage, rather than the missing comprehension itself, if that makes sense. So, because comprehension occurs in your brain, in order to show somebody that you comprehend things, you need to behave in some way, right? And so we take those we take those comprehension tests and whatnot as we are all growing up, and that is an observable piece of evidence that we comprehend what it is that we absorbed. But it is really only the effect of comprehension. It's technically a separate behavior. And so Wernicke's aphasia is, yes, deficit to comprehension, which manifests as interesting speech. And I say interesting because it's not necessarily... A lot of people refer to it as word salad, disconnected speech. What I like to think of it is it's replying to the understood speech, right? A person said something to you, right? We're talking about speech. We're not talking about reading or anything. A person says something to you or asks you a question. You get that information and you reply with the information that you received. That's probably not the information that was sent, okay? So I don't really like word salad because word salad seems like it's, just a mixture of various things like lettuce here, toppings here, some dressing here. I don't really like it because it seems connected to the person. They think they are responding to what they heard. And so and so that's why you'll see it referred to as fluent aphasia, which means that the person thinks that they're responding in a way that reflects what was spoken to them, the question that was answered. And so many of you have seen Byron, a stroke survivor. They're on a cruise. Don't want to be on a cruise right now, that's for sure. So Byron here had a stroke. Stroke is around here, right? And he responds to questions as he understands them. And yeah, some of his coordination of that, the angular gyrus is responsible for a little bit of coordination of that. So, putting words together that mean appropriate things and then putting them in the right order, semantics and syntax. We'll talk about those probably on Thursday. Because I'm going to go over the classical model and then we're going to end. And so he's having trouble putting things together. That's what the angular gyrus might be for, because again we have the connection here, goes through the angular gyrus. And so he thinks what he's saying is perfectly reasonable to what he heard. Okay, so here's Byron.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talked with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. But they'll save in the moment. He'll have water very soon for him. With luck for him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to
We
get to
will
Juneau.
store it right here and they'll save their hands right there for them.
And what were we just doing with the iPad?
Right.
Stream dropped out here. So, gonna give it a second and then restart the stream. All right, and we are back. Stream dropped out. Sorry, everyone. I'm gonna keep playing Byron over here.
At the moment they don't show a darn thing.
With the iPad that we were doing. Like here?
I'd like my change for me and change hands for me. And with Happy, I would talk with Donna sometimes. We're out with them. Other people are working with them. I'm very happy with them.
Good.
This girl was really good and happy. And I play golf and hit other trees. We play out with the hands. We save a lot of hands on hold for people, for us, other hands. I don't know what you get, but I talk with a lot of hand for hand. Sometime. I talk of any more to saying.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope the world lasts for you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Choice of words, Byron, right now. I hope the world lasts for you. Oof. Right here. Right here. Man. Okay, so you can see that from Byron's perspective, what he's saying, at least from what I can tell, obviously I'm making an assumption about Byron and who he is, but what I can tell from the video here is that when he says something, he thinks it's coherent to the person that he's talking to. And I think that's a crucial distinction between Wernicke's aphasia and Broca's aphasia, okay? And I think it's pretty much the only distinction that I want you to focus on, comprehension versus production, right? Production is, generally speaking, the observable thing that we can see, but when there's damage to this area versus this area, what's going on inside is much different, okay? All right, to close us out for today, the last slide
Hi, Byron, how are you?
Is the classical model. This is the Wernicke-Lichtheim model of language and aphasia, okay? And so they're German, and they identified 3 areas, okay? So we have the auditory inputs, A, the motor outputs, M, or the motor area, M, auditory area, A, and then the conceptual area, angular gyrus, other connections along the arcuate fasciculus. They called it B, which stands for the German word for concept, Begriff. So these are the connections here. So we have auditory inputs. These red lines in the model represent a deficit, okay? A deficit or damage, okay? And so for each of these, what you can see is what happens when you damage an area. Ellie, I'm almost done. Go upstairs, please. So if you have no auditory input, so if there's... Ellie, please. Pure word deafness. Thank you, I appreciate that. Pure word deafness. If you have... Careful, you're gonna hit the green screen. If you have damage to to the auditory area, then you have Wernicke's aphasia, as we talked about. If you have damage to the connection between A and M, you have conduction aphasia. If you have... There are two other aphasias that we aren't going to talk about. Transcortical sensory aphasia and transcortical motor aphasia. That is deficits to this B area. Now it's difficult to know what these two are because of what is unidentified with the word begriff. Ellie, no. Murphy, go upstairs. Oy. I'm almost done. Broca's aphasia, right? If you have damage to the motor area, that's what causes Broca's aphasia. And then here, if you have a disconnection or a damage between the motor area and the motor outputs, that's where you get dysarthria. Okay? So, this is the classical model. There are issues with this model. Most of them stem from this. Okay? Most of them stem from this conceptual area. And so we're going to, on Thursday, when we go through the cognitive portions, we're going to jump back into the brain stuff and talk about newer models of how the dorsal and ventral streams work with transmitting this information back and forth. Okay? So I'm going to end the stream and recording there. Thanks everyone for coming by. If you have any questions, please email me. Let me know. Toodaloo. Have a good lunch. I'll see you either tomorrow or on Thursday. Bye.